Coming up next on All About Android, it's one of my favorite episodes of the year. This is the episode where we take a look back at the year 2021 and pull out some of the biggest stories from the year. The news, the biggest Android news, the hardware news, app news, and our guest, Wen2Dao, returns this week and gives us some of the biggest developer news from throughout the year. It's me, Ron Richards, Florence Ion, and of course Wen2Dao, and it's coming at you right now on All About Android.
Podcasts you love
from people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Imperfect Foods. Imperfect Foods is catching the food that falls through the cracks of our food system by sourcing quirky yet delicious foods. Right now, Imperfect Foods is offering our listeners 20% off your first 4 orders when you go to imperfectfoods.com and use promo code Android. And by userway.org. Userway ensures your website is accessible, ADA compliant, and helps your business avoid accessibility-related lawsuits. The perfect way to showcase your brand's commitment to millions of people with disabilities. It's not only the right thing to do, it's also the law. Go to userway.org/twit for 30% off Userway's AI-powered accessibility solution. And by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. As a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting betterhelp.com/Android. Hello and welcome to All About Android, episode 556. The last live episode of the year, recorded on Tuesday, December 21st, 2021. Your weekly source for the latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. I'm Jason Howell.
And I'm Ron Richards.
And I'm Florence Ion.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's the three of us plus one welcoming back to the show. So great to get you back on. Wen2Dao, how you doing? Randomlytyping.com is the site.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too. Your friendly neighborhood Android developer is back.
That's right, back. and back on a really wonderful episode. This is, we have little touch points. We talked about it from time to time, touch points throughout the year, moments where like we know those episodes are going to be a lot of fun. Usually the pre/post Google I/O is a fun one. Whatever the Pixel release is, that's the big Samsung release, all those episodes that we know year after year, they're going to be great. This is also one of my favorites. This is the last live episode of the year, which means we're looking back on the year to kind of pull out some of the, the biggest news, both the ups and the downs, because, as with every year in everything, but definitely in the world of Android, there's good and there's bad when you go digging. And that's what this episode is all about. So it's really great to get you on, Wen, because we are going to have... Of course, we're going to do the staples, right? The news, the hardware, the apps. We are not going to have any feedback this week. Instead, we're going to do a little bit of a developer-focused look back. And you're perfect for that. So we appreciate you.
I appreciate the chance to ramble about dev stuff, as if I don't get that normally, but now you all have to.
I know, right? Yeah, exactly. You live it, you breathe it, and we're asking you to do it again. But I think it'll be a lot of fun.
But for a good reason. And this is I love the look back. I love the end of the year show because every year with Android is an adventure, right? And there are twists and turns and things we don't expect and things that happen that you could never have predicted and things that we predicted that didn't happen. It's really just the greatest. So yeah.
Pixel Foldable. Just saying.
Oh, Pixel Watch.
Right. Both of those fall into the same category. Yeah.
I feel like those are still in the not yet category. I think there's the hope is still alive there, So
I feel the same way. I think that's going to happen at some point. So to say that we have this rundown loaded would be an understatement. There's a lot in here. So let's waste no more time. Let's jump right in, starting with the top Android news of the year, which gives Burke the chance to fire off that news bumper.
Hey, Ron. Hey, Ron. There's a lot of news this year. A lot of news.
Burke goes out the way he came in with a poorly planned news bumper.
You weren't even giving him an inch.
Nope.
You were like, no.
He was doing.
Flo knows what I was doing, right?
Well, I'm saying Burke was doing the bit as the last live bit for the year.
Yes, and I was not playing with the bit because I had no preparation for the bit. So,
Not playing at all. So
Wow.
Okay. So we have a whole selection of moments from throughout the year. By no means is this exhaustive, and we're probably not going to touch on every single thing. So, as we were discussing prior to the show, we're probably just going to kind of popcorn around here. And, if there's anything that really grabs you, feel free and speak up. I think the obvious choice for the top of the news, the biggest news of the year, has to be just the fact that Android 12 A is the current version of Android, but B was really a version of Android unlike any that we've seen, at least in probably 5 to 7 years, right? This was a version of Android that looks a lot different. And I think that the argument could be made that some of the under the hood stuff isn't quite up to par. There've been people complaining about a lot of bugs, and maybe it didn't change enough outside of the visual refresh. Some people really hate the visual refresh, but no doubt about it, Android 12 looks different than Android has looked in a long time, and I like it. I don't know about y'all, but I'm enjoying it so far. What do y'all think?
I don't mind it.
Don't
say that.
mind it.
It's not like I'm waking up every morning going, "Oh man, I'm so glad I'm on Android 12." Like, there are little things that I see the improvement and I feel it and that sort of thing. But then there are other things where I'm like, "Oh God, this is like when I was trying to turn my phone off the other day and I felt like Burke because the button wasn't doing it." But so like I don't feel like if it, like, I understand it was a major kind of we talked about it being a major chapter and not a major paradigm shift, but a major evolution. And like, I do like the concept of the inheriting the colors of your wallpaper and making it more customizable, but it just still, I can't get over the bulbousness of it and the little things here and there. I will say it does feel more refined than previous versions. It does feel more mature in that it feels like a current version of the OS, but I don't know, just not totally great. I don't know. What do you both? What is it?
Yeah,
it's all right.
Yeah. When you want to go first, because I'm
sure. I mean, okay. So kind of as a preface, I feel like I think I've been doing this too long. So I've been an Android dev for about 10 years now. And I think that in a lot of ways, like, every new version of Android is like a big deal, but it's also like not a big deal for us because it usually means more work. And I think that after like 10 years of this, I'm like, it's all right. Like, I think that it's like one of two things, right? Like, it might be like last year where there's not a visual refresh and we can complain, well, it's kind of same old, or they do something drastic and then everyone hates it. So it's kind of like it's like a no-win situation, right?
No win, for sure.
No win. There's no win except for this win. I'm win. But
That's true.
For Android, I kind of like certain things. I think that and it's never, you can never satisfy everyone, and this is like a dev thing. But things like the overscroll, which might have come from like other platforms. Like, some people like it, some people get nauseous with it. I kind of like the idea of using more space, especially as a kind of accessibility issue. I like that they're trying new things. I like that it looks like as you said, Ron, it looks a little more refined, but in terms of like big, like dramatic shifts, no. Like, and I think that for me, I've kind of like thought of like Android for a long time as like I think for the last maybe 5 years, every new Android version has felt like a dot release. And what I mean by that is that it's just like a tiny upgrade, a tiny cleanup, a tiny little tweak of something. And I think even this, with like the dramatic kind of visual shift, it still feels like a dot release, but one where they're kind of trying a couple different things. It's still like the base is pretty much the same. And from a dev perspective, like, it's all just small improvements. So it kind of feels like, it's all right. Like, trying new things.
It's all right, but it looks a lot different. Yeah, but I think you're right. Yeah, it kind of seems like the majority of the whiz bang that came with Android 12 really is around this like Material U, around this spaciousness and dead space, some people might call it. What were your thoughts, Flo, before we move on?
So I am probably going to shift the commentary a little bit away from just like the core Android, because where I'm existing right now is on OnePlus's Android. And I don't want to talk about ColorOS right now, but I do want to talk about what is going to happen going into the New Year's with the different skins, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. I know Samsung has One UI. OnePlus still has like Oxygen, but I'm really curious how this is all going to be implemented just like across the rest of the Android landscape.
Like, do they let the custom UIs inherit as much of the DNA of Android 12?
Yeah,
Right?
Particularly of like Material U, but also the way that like the new Pixel 6 has very changed menu structures. Things like the consolidation of the networking settings, and they just don't feel organic to me the way they placed everything. And so I'm scared that's also going to make it to like the other manufacturers. And then, whatever Google decides, like that's just the way it's going to be for everybody else. And yeah, I don't know how to see into that future. I feel like I could have maybe figured out a pattern before, but now I'm really not sure where to go next in terms of like a phone manufacturer.
If you could see into that future, I feel like you'd be much, much more wealthy than all of us. Like I think that you would.
I would also be much less anxious, but
I mean, it occurs. Oh yeah, go away.
Sorry, go ahead. No, but I think that's a good point. And that's kind of, again, like speaking as a dev, I think that a lot of the kind of blaseness that I think sometimes like I kind of approach these things is because that, even if say Pixel has like these new UI changes, how is Samsung going to handle it? How are other manufacturers going to handle it? And things like Material U, it's like it actually comes down to the developer and how much they want to support this new thing. And that's kind of another thing when Android comes out. Depending on who you are, like your team and what your app and what your needs are, you may not be rushing to use all the new cool things. You may not be rushing to bring Material U into your app. And it might be 4 or 5 years down the line when you actually come around to it. And then there's like a new thing. So it's exciting, but it's also, I think you're totally right, Phil, that it's a question of how is it going to be adopted? Is this going to be adopted? Is this going to be something that, takes off with people? And it's kind of interesting because especially with Material U, and I think it's fascinating because it's a great system, and I like the idea because people have been using like for example, like Galaxy themes for a long time. People have been using like custom launchers, so it kind of makes sense that hey, maybe Google should try a first-party solution to try to allow people to customize their experience. But it still will come down to okay, does each app that I use actually take advantage of it? Is it going to show up at all? Is it going to show up well? So it's like it's like a great opportunity, but then it's like, is anyone actually going to use this to a point where it's going to hit critical mass? And it's going to be like how things are done from now on. You're just going to have to build an app that respects Material U, or you're just going to completely ignore it. So I think that's a really great question though.
And there's so many apps and so many devices running so many different versions that you have to imagine, as with everything on Android, right? Like this, like Material U adherence will be as just as fragmented as anything else, right?
Has anything really changed? Sometimes it feels a little like we're stuck in this stagnation, and maybe it has to do with the fact that, we're still in this pandemic. We really still are like living through the same thing every day. But in regards to Android, I do feel this lull, I want to say. It feels like kind of a lull. And it feels like I've written this story 12 other times already.
Yeah. I can understand where you're coming from. At the same time, I kind of feel like that's why Android 12 being a design focused shift was kind of the right time, in my opinion, because even if it's a shallow amount of updates underneath, the graphics overhaul, at least there's something that the average user can look at and go, oh, wow, the last time I used Android, it didn't look like that. It looked very different. It was a little bit more basic or blah, blah, blah. And now this looks very modern. At least there's something there to look and point at and say, yes, that's different. Whether it's better or not, I don't know. But
especially like I think that it's no surprise that the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro and the hardware hardware launch that's timed with Android 12 has been so effective, because not only like are people relooking at, or customers are relooking at Pixel phones, but the Android they see on that Pixel phone looks different, right? And it looks engaging, and it looks, kind of, drawing you in to try to, why does it look like that? That's not the, like to the point you mentioned, Jason, that's not the Android I remember. And so if that allows Google to get more, kind of market share in the hardware space, and then eventually give us a Pixel Watch and a foldable Pixel and things like that, then all the better. I mean, the thing is that you can't stay stagnant, like that, as much as it's funny, because it's like, I often hear a lot of friends and my wife and folks like that complain about like apps updating and changing. Why do they change it? I like the way it works and stuff like that, because you don't want it to be the same thing forever. So it's going to have to change. The question is, what goes from here once Android 12L rolls out, once we see, kind of the bigger device kind of support, and then we see where they go with it. And then, honestly, I feel like it's going to be no time before we find out what Android 13 is going to be all about in May, or April, so.
I know, it never sleeps, right? It
never does.
And we have this bridge with 12L. So 13, once that happens, it's going to be like, my goodness, developers, I feel for you. It's just constantly.
Do you think they're going to do 13 though? Because isn't it like bad luck?
13 is my lucky number. So it's all in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
That's very on brand for Ron.
Right, but that's like totally like the, didn't Samsung just skip the number? Right, didn't they just jump to 20?
They did. They went to 20. Yeah, they jumped.
You can't just do that. You can't, or pull a Microsoft and call it Android, XP or something like that.
Samsung did it, and now nobody's still really. Other than you right now, nobody's really spending a whole lot of time going, why didn't you do 13 instead of 20?
I won't be mad if we go back to Sweets, though. I kind of miss like the treat names for Android and all the funny marketing and like the hints and all that kind of. I kind of miss it. And as a dev, sometimes someone is asking me like, "What feature did this come in?" I was like, I don't know. Like there's
I gotta remember
numbers. I remember treats. I remember Oreo. I remember marshmallow. Yeah. I don't know what's going on anymore.
Right. Dang it. Now I got to remember a boring number instead of a treat that I can eat just for the heck of it.
We're all just numbers in the end.
Yes. So very true. So very true. Well, speaking of numbers, we're never going to get through all these stories, by the way. I can already tell.
No,
so that's okay. It's okay. We'll just do what we do. It's fine. Yeah. But this is related. The number of years that phones are being updated. This was a year where we got a little bit of transition there, right? Samsung now offering 4 years of security updates on its phones. Google came out with the 5-year promise, but then, or rather, we knew that it was going to be 5 years, and then eventually they clarified, well, it's 3 years of major updates on Pixel devices and 2 years of security, but that's a total of 5. And then we had the Fairphone story not too long ago. In fact, this was back in September. Fairphone 4, 5-year warranty, aims for 6 years of updates. So there's more attention being paid, I suppose. There's kind of like a beating drum that is moving the update duration a little bit longer than it's ever been, at least in the Android realm, and that feels like a promising improvement. Even if it isn't perfect, it's better.
Yeah, I felt like every time we turned around, the story of update length kept on coming up this year. I feel like that this was a theme that happened quite throughout. And I think it's great. It's definitely I was talking over. We had first kind of holiday event this past weekend with family. And I was talking to somebody who uses Android, and another person in the family is trying to get them to use iOS. And we were talking about it. I was trying to explain planned obsolescence to them, because they're all normals, and the whole, the idea of a new phone every 2 years that the carriers came up with 20 years ago, and and Apple and other manufacturers really have held on to and have really supported, but it doesn't, it's not consumer friendly. Like you might have I know a lot of people who are still rocking phones that are 3-4 years later. They should still have security updates, right? So
yeah, they should. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's part of that negotiation that every manufacturer makes with their customers and consumers, and how can you be the most keeping your line moving forward, but also not forgetting about people who supported you in the past.
Yeah.
I think it's really important, especially like even as like an individual app developer. I still continue to be surprised at what we call like the long tail of our clients. That's basically kind of like the oldest versions that we see people using, and and the OSs that they're running. And it's always nice to think about just the flagships. It's nice to think about what's new now. But I love this about the platform, is that Android a lot is driven by, people that aren't using flagship phones, people that want affordable devices, people that hang on to their devices. And it's easier to dev for all the new fun stuff, but the long tail, the people that hold on who made Android great. Thank you all. And so as a dev, it's harder, but as a consumer, I really appreciate that. So I do, I think it's a good thing, because again, like the markets, like the non-techie people that aren't changing their phone every year are, I think who has made Android great and is who keeps driving Android on keeping our market share up. So it's a good thing overall.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's exactly what makes Android the most used mobile platform in existence. Even though iPhone gets so much of the news and the I don't know. There's just there's a lot of communication between. Well, I guess here in the U.S., which is where we do our show, obviously, there's a lot around iPhone, but that's the point, right? Worldwide, it's Android really at the top of the heap. So, good to not lose sight of that for sure. There's a few others in here, but I realize I'm picking. Would any of you have one that you're like, yeah, you know what?
Honestly, I think the 1-2 punch and happen to be the next ones in there, but like basically what happened in the world of gaming, I think is worth noting. Probably kind of like an up and I don't even know how to describe them. They were just crazy. Google kind of whatever's going on with Stadia. In terms of in terms of shutting down the development studio, and we saw crazy offers about Stadia all through the year, where they were offering the service for if you were a YouTube TV subscriber and things like that, and then getting news like this, it's really like the head is kind of spinning as to is Stadia happening or not? Is it something that you can invest in or not? And then at the same time as that's happening, just the drama of Epic Games, the makers of Fortnite, going to battle in court first against Apple, and they're also in court with Google about the practices of the App Store and how it affects Epic and the ramifications that will have to other developers, not only in gaming but just apps in general. I think is just like possibly one of the stories of the year, because it has the opportunity to turn the entire ecosystem of mobile and, Apple's App Store, Vice Grip, and the Google Play Store and all that sort of stuff, on its ear. And we saw for, years, decades old shifts in, decades old agreements between Apple and Google with developers shift to become more developer friendly and less, and getting more revenue and that sort of thing. And I think it's, it has the opportunity to really change the landscape potentially for a subset of developers who have push enough business through their apps and that sort of thing. I mean, it was kind of a big year for that in that regard.
How I'm curious from your perspective, throughout the year, the Apple versus Epic, and then also by extension, Epic versus Google. I mean, they were kind of going hand in hand, but I feel like we heard more about Apple versus Epic, even though it was kind of the same battle on both sides. How, from your perspective, and maybe you've talked with developers about this, maybe you haven't, and that would be the story too. Is like, man, they don't really care. But how are developers feeling about kind of the results of this case from the perspective of what you are now enabled to do? When it comes to playing in these walled gardens and choosing your own payments platform and all that kind of stuff.
It's really complicated, to be perfectly honest. Like, especially like where I work, where we're part of a larger company, we have legal and marketing help us with that, and it is very difficult. I think that like, for example, for us, where we have kind of like a large company. We generally are just very cautious. Like, I think day to day, it doesn't matter too much to us. Like, this is not something that kind of impacts us, like even, say every week or every month. It's something that will kind of start kind of from our legal marketing departments and then trickle down to us. I'm sure that this is probably more scary for independent developers where playing in that space. But like, for example, just from my experience, it's always just like, we have to think every single time that we even mention like anything regarding someone giving us money for something, we need to consult something. We need to consult someone. We need to determine whether our messaging, whether even just like the most innocuous, like little bit of text or image is kind of violating any of these kind of like policies. So it is something that we're kind of cautious of. I'd say like, I would definitely feel for like independent developers trying to kind of monetize in this space. But yeah, we kind of just all watch and kind of wait to see what the fallout is. Like for us, I think like, especially the way we monetize is pretty like straightforward. So it is more just kind of like a curiosity, but yeah, I would definitely say that this is again, for especially game developers and indie developers trying to, do interesting things in terms of how you can, monetize and make money and like build services through Android. It's pretty interesting. But it's more like you kind of have to shake it out. And if they make you dance, you dance. Or legal or marketing makes you dance.
It's kind of like leave the dirty work to Epic to get in there and and to do all that, and we'll see where it all ends up. I mean, it really does seem like on the other side of that, it ends up being a better, well, it just brings more choice, more capability, from my understanding anyways, to developers as far as how they want to represent their apps and how they want to do business inside of their apps. So, but it's a really big shift. I mean, things have been one way for years, on mobile, on these mobile platforms, and now that's kind of loosening up. And there's a whole bunch of reasons, not just Epic versus Apple, that are the reasons why that's starting to change. But hopefully that's good for the developer, and brings more options, more choice for the user. So
absolutely.
Yeah. And then we don't really have time for these last few, but I figure I'll just rattle them off anyways, just so that we got them in there. Another thing was the Google finalized its acquisition of Fitbit that started last year, but it finalized this year. And then in the next block, we're going to talk a little bit about the Galaxy Watch 4, which is kind of, it's sort of part of this, but I think it's a question that remains, like, how does this Fitbit acquisition really tie into Google's development of Wear and trying to revitalize its wearable strategy? Galaxy Watch 4 is kind of the first example of that. We'll talk about that after the break. And then finally, and anytime Fuchsia comes up, Flo, I always think of you. It's attached to you at this point. But Google actually doing something with Fuchsia OS on a public-facing way this year. We saw our first devices running Fuchsia OS, and it started with the first-gen Nest Hub, which really didn't seem to change much, right, Flo? It's kind of the same, just a little different.
I completely forgot that it's running it until you brought it up in the show doc today. So
exactly.
I think that was the point.
Yeah, right. If they wanted it to just be a replacement for some reason, maybe we're like, it's still too early. Maybe we still don't truly understand what Google's overall vision is for Fuchsia. But.
And let's not forget, Google's going to be doing some new things to like the new Nest Hub. Beginning next year, I think they're going to start like charging beginning in 2023, they're going to start charging for like sleep tracking.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. A few years after that feature was rolled out onto a device as like a key feature. Yeah. Interesting.
And I don't know if that necessarily has anything like immediately to do with Fuchsia OS, but it's making me think about what's coming next from that realm. So
yeah, no question.
22.
Yeah.
I will say, I was going to make some snarky joke that maybe in those changes they can make it work, but period. But I will give it credit that I pulled my I don't even know how, I didn't even know it existed, but the kids were going crazy and we were in the bedroom and there's a Google Google Home Mini still in there, the little hockey puck, and I just needed them to calm down for a second. So I go, hey kids, and I said, hey G, call Santa, because I'm like, they must have done something. And there's an entire call Santa Claus bit that you can go to where he talks to you and asks you questions and things happen. I won't spoil what it is. I'll tell everyone to do it. But what was great was after the first couple of times they didn't quite understand or get it. Hours later, I was with my son and we did it again, and Santa asked the question and he was like shouting the answer. Like he totally understood. I saw the moment that he got it. And we did it like 5 more times. And like when you finish it, Santa goes, "Oh, that was great. Do you want to do it again?" And if you say yes, you go through the same thing, but it goes through different paths. And every time my son would be like, "No." And so then Santa would say goodbye. And then like 2 seconds, he'd go, "Call Santa." And so then we call Santa again. so like, good job, Google Home, for like, engaging the kids during the holidays. That said, after 24 hours of it, I wish there was a different game to play with Santa though. So that's the only problem.
Yeah, I can understand.
I think
that
we've heard every avenue that it can go down. So
that choose your own adventure. You've exhausted all adventures.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm sure that we missed some top news in there, but that's what we got for right now. We've got plenty more coming up. But first, let's take a break and thank the sponsor of this episode, and that is Imperfect Foods. Everyday delicious groceries fall through the cracks of our food system, primarily because of how they look, right? When you go to a grocery store and you see the food on the shelves, most of the time, often what you're seeing there has been kind of picked and chosen to be represented there. Some of the imperfect foods that would normally end up on the shelf aren't placed on the shelf for whatever reason. They believe that a fruit should be completely perfect and unblemished in every way, whatever it may be. Well, Imperfect Foods is turning this around by sourcing quirky yet delicious foods and then delivering them to you in a way that's proven to reduce emissions. I love the purpose of Imperfect Foods. It's really solid. What if getting your favorite groceries put time back into your week instead of taking it away? The weather, obviously, it's getting way colder outside, more so for Ron than for me and for you. But you can stay inside, not have the weather, and let Imperfect Foods deliver you intentionally sourced groceries with just a few clicks. It's super easy to do. Imperfect Foods is a grocery delivery service offering an entire line of sustainable groceries. They taste delicious. They reduce waste. In the last year, I'm not sure if you knew this, 35% of the food supply went unsold or uneaten in the U.S. That's crazy, 35%. Well, visit imperfectfoods.com and you can see if they deliver in your area. Hopefully they do. And once you sign up, you can personalize your weekly grocery order with fresh seasonal produce, pantry staples, yummy snacks. I got a bag of these chocolate-covered pretzels, but with like candy cane sprinkles on them. Oh my God, they're so good. Like I started one night while I was watching a movie, and then I looked down and half the bag was gone. Like I literally could not stop. Your order's going to arrive on the same day each week, and that cuts down on delivery, right? And instead of having to go to individual trips throughout the week, Imperfect Foods actually has this really cool model. They deliver weekly by neighborhood, and that produces 25 to 75% fewer emissions than those individual trips that you might take to the grocery store. And you can say goodbye to packaging guilt. Imperfect Foods is the only national grocery delivery company that makes it easy to return your packaging after every order. Really cool stuff. You get that box, all of your food is cold inside. It's ready to go into your refrigerator or cook up immediately. The ordering process is awesome. You can tell Imperfect Foods if you choose to shop organic or you don't, or you kind of don't care, and they can and then you can kind of tailor your box. They'll come up with ideas for what should be in the box, but you can also tailor it and say, I don't, actually eat radishes, but I do eat, apples or whatever the case may be. Right now, Imperfect Foods is offering our listeners 20% off your first 4 orders when you go to imperfectfoods.com. Make sure and use promo code Android. Again, 20% off your first 4 orders. That's up to an $80 value at imperfectfoods.com. And make sure and use that promo code Android. That's easy to remember. Imperfectfoods.com, promo code Android. And we thank Imperfect Foods for their support of All About Android. All right. We've got some hardware, top hardware news of the year right now. The top
year.
hardware. And no doubt, no question. I think you would all agree the top hardware news of the year is the Microsoft Duo 2. Am I wrong? It sounds like I'm wrong.
No, it's my new watch face. Oh man,
that's the top hardware. Is your new watch
That's
face.
the top
This
news.
is my top
Yeah, there it
hardware.
is.
All right. So
What is your new watch face for those listening? Wow.
Yeah, Ron can see it. It's the 90210 Walsh family Christmas portrait, of course.
Right on.
Of course,
On my
it
Galaxy
is.
Watch 4, which is why I brought it.
okay.
I wasn't just showing it, I made that
All
on my
right.
Galaxy Watch 4.
So you bring up Galaxy Watch 4. Let's talk about it. What do you like about the
did.
Galaxy Watch 4?
I know we could have gotten in straight into the Pixel, but
Nah,
everybody's
we don't
been
need to.
talking. We already know it's whatever the biggest thing in the. Yes, we get it. No, but the Galaxy Watch 4 is kind of the first Android smartwatch in years that has come out that people actually want to buy and use. So it's no surprise that it comes from Samsung, because whatever Google is doing the last couple of years with Fossil and Michael Kors and all those fashion brands that were coming on,
Yeah.
it just wasn't working. Not to mention the Qualcomm chip that everybody was using was just supremely
dated.
subpar. Yeah. It's been a journey to kind of get back to where we are. And so when Samsung announced this watch, I immediately pre-ordered one. I was already on an older Galaxy Watch Active, is what they were called in the first gen. And I've been mostly satisfied with what's happening here. It's still a hybrid Wear OS Tizen, well, not Tizen, but a hybrid Wear OS Samsung situation. And I don't have the ability to back up Android apps on it. I can only back up the Samsung part of it. So there's still kinks that need to be worked out, but it was very indicative of the journey. It's very indicative of where we're headed and kind of the journey that's ahead in wearables. And I'm just kind of praying that it's not too late.
Yeah, I mean that's the big question, right? Is it too late? Is it too late for Google to care about its wearable strategy that it really, for quite a while felt kind of like it really didn't, or it had other priorities? I liked that watch, and then I stopped wearing it, which is what I do with all wearables. And so I just once again I'm reminded maybe I'm just not a wearables guy every time. And I really liked this one too.
I'm wearing it every single day, and I work from home. I don't. Yeah. Even on my busiest days, I'll know how much I moved, which is whatever. But Samsung really kind of figured out how to make this wearables thing work for them. And now, if only OnePlus would take a note.
With
watch,
OnePlus had their
they
right?
put out this year.
Yeah. Now, I mean, totally different category too. That watch. Actually, I have that watch right here. It's got a little layer of dust on it. So forgive the little. Here, I'll wipe it off. This is my life. But yeah, it was a total different price category, the OnePlus Watch. So kind of apples to oranges. It wasn't running Wear OS, right? It's running OnePlus's own wearable OS. And I mean, it's fine. I mean, this is $100 some odd, pretty inexpensive.
Isn't it? I thought it was Amazfit's OS.
What is it?
Amazfit's OS. It's called RTOS, Real Time OS.
Oh.
At least that's what I read. I read it on Android Central earlier
custom
today.
OS based on RTOS.
Okay. Sorry, based on
memory.
it. There you go. But
good memory.
We really buried the lead on the year here, didn't we?
Hey, we can go. We know we're going to talk about the Pixel. Of course we are. Why start with it?
Because here's the thing, Jason.
Do we have?
Here's the thing. I don't think we talked about the Pixel 6 or the Pixel 6 Pro enough this year.
Enough this year. Yeah, there's some people that are yelling at their phone right now. You don't even need to. You've talked about it enough. I mean, what else is there to say that we haven't already said? You know, that you either love it or you hate it. I really enjoy my Pixel 6. I know that a lot of people have complained about the fingerprint sensor and other bugs with it. And I suppose at times I've encountered those, but I'm so used to encountering those on literally every phone I've ever used that I guess I forgive it. When you have the 6 as well, like I don't know, what's your feeling like as far as the devices? Why were you moved to get the 6 and you weren't moved to get it like a OnePlus phone this year, let's say?
I mean, I'm always curious to see what Google is doing, and I think that especially with Pixel's always being kind of like the Android Prime experience, it's always kind of important as a developer to kind of see what stock Android is, even though probably, I mean, it's fair to say, like, I think a simple majority of Android users are not using stock. It's always kind of important to see what's going on. And I think that the hardware did excite me this year. Like, I loved like this weird like bump in the back, like, okay, that's different. And I don't know, like the screen looked really good. Like everything kind of fits together. And for me, I really enjoyed using it. I've enjoyed, like, I have moderate to small hands, and it's a big ass screen, pardon me, but I don't mind using it. And I just enjoyed it. Like as a rule, I try to get the Pixel phones just to see what all the fuss is about. And this is like the first year where I feel like, okay, fuss kind of justified. And I'm excited. Yeah, justified. I was with my sister and my new niece recently, and I'm taking pictures, and it's kind of the quality. Like I think the cameras in general have always been at least a talking point for Pixels ever since they were first manufactured, and they've kind of been like a little bit plateau. But like I remember like taking a video of my little niece who's like this rambunctious little 8-month-old tomorrow. And it's really obvious kind of like the difference in like kind of like how high quality the video is and how many options there are. I even got to use like the magic eraser because we took a really cute picture of her and there was like a vacuum like right over her head. So I think there's a lot to be said about this. And I think this is a good return to form. And I like the idea that they're trying to push the Pixels in a unique direction. We don't need another like standard like Google phone. We want to see like what are the craziest things that you could do. Samsung's got like the flips and the folds and everything. What can you do with a Pixel? What can you do with a regular form factor phone? And it's good. I actually was really impressed also by the screen. Like another thing, like my sister was watching me kind of like do things. She's like, why does your screen seem so alive? And I was like, yeah, dude, that's like that high, frequency screen.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So yes. So I love it. Like it's like the first one I've actually genuinely been like, okay, this wasn't just like I'm going to buy the Pixel phone because I'm a dev. It's a device that I actually enjoyed.
Right. And it is the device that Flo does not actually enjoy. In fact, Flo, would you consider, so your daily driver is the OnePlus 9 Pro, is that right? And would you consider...
No, just the 9.
The 9. Just the 9. Would you consider that one of the top devices of the year? I mean, it's the one that you're using over the Pixel.
It's fine. Look, nothing beats that camera on the Pixel, okay? I'm going to tell you that. And the Pixel, I'm probably, because I have both of them on loan from Googs, I'm probably going to put them on little tripods on Christmas because I want all my Christmas photos to be with the Pixel. But, but for an everyday carry, like an everyday phone, the OnePlus 9 was awesome. And part of the reason that I started using it is because it had so much room. I have 256 gigs on it, and I just I'm saying this out loud. I loaded it up with ROMs of games that I own and have purchased in the past. And it became like my little handheld gaming thing. And so that's why I kind of held on to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I can understand
that's kind of where OnePlus does it for me. That's what they're like good at. Whereas Google is good at like, hey, everybody can get a nice experience out of this. I will say, anecdotally, the Pixel was the first time in years that I was out, for the 1 or 2 times that I went out during this pandemic, that I was out and somebody said they were truly excited about their phone. That was not like an Android fan person like we are.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's an exciting phone. There's I can understand that, and it looks different, and it probably shows really well in the cell stores, the cellular stores.
Oh yeah, it's not even available. Do you know this thing? It's sold out everywhere.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you've been having a hard time with that, right? Trying to locate one.
I didn't buy anything. I just throwing money
gift cards,
at the
right?
problem.
Yeah.
You're like, I give up. Here's some money.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of OnePlus, was this a good year for OnePlus? I can't tell
I feel like every year we ask the question, was this a good year for OnePlus? And it's literally the flip of a coin.
Yeah, but I mean, in previous years, there's been a lot. Yeah, you're probably right. I'm
going to go out on a limb and say it was not a good year for OnePlus.
I feel like OnePlus.
Did Carl Pei leave this year, or was that last year too? When did Carl Pei leave?
Oh, I think that was last year. I'm doing a quick search right now.
2020. Yeah, that was October 2020. So yeah. But that pretty much set the tone for their 2021, I feel. So
yeah, I mean, and we heard about his nothing. We made much ado about his nothing. Oh,
here's the thing about his nothing is that there's actually a band called Nothing that I'm a big fan of that I actually was supposed to see last night, but they canceled because somebody in the band got COVID because everybody has COVID now.
Oh boy!
And now the fact that there's a band that I actively listen to called Nothing and a electronics company that I'm actively tracking called Nothing, it's very confusing. So
you've got a lot of nothing in your life.
Really, a lot of nothing.
Whole lot of nothing. So, okay. And then there was the ColorOS, the merging, OnePlus merging with Oppo. Oppo? I never know.
I just say Oppo in my head.
Oppo. And ultimately, OxygenOS and ColorOS merging in some way, which, I mean, I haven't had as much direct experience with the results of this as you probably have, Flo, if that's your daily driver. Does it change much for you?
I haven't. I didn't deal with the beta. I'm not doing anything with it. I think they retracted the beta.
Oh, okay.
If I recall correctly. Because it was super buggy and people were complaining about it. I'm a little behind on. So just today we had news that OnePlus is confirmed they're announcing a new phone next month. So things are still moving along in the company. But
sure.
As for 2021, yes, I agree with you. It was a very quiet year on the public side. And then those of us living with the phones, I'm scared that this is going to be the end of a pretty good thing that OnePlus has had going.
That's what I'm wondering too. That's kind of where I'm headed with that is have the winds of progress kind of shifted. So many things happened in the last year and a half for OnePlus. And then this year felt really quiet. They didn't actually end up releasing the OnePlus 9T, right? That was expected. It didn't end up happening. I'm curious. I'm curious to see if OnePlus, I don't know. I feel like for enthusiasts, OnePlus as a brand has had a little bit of energy and excitement around it for years. And this was the first year that that energy and excitement really seemed tampered. OnePlus is another smartphone company now. They really, for whatever reason. And so I'm curious to see what that leads to.
It's also, okay, just to kind of end it on this note, it's also going to be interesting because with the ban on Huawei and how that's kind of changed, it hasn't super changed the landscape in the US, but I see a lot of changes. I don't know. It's going to be, from the business side of things, I'm very curious to see if we'll get more overseas manufacturers coming to the US.
Yeah.
Because
to see that too.
Of the Huawei ban. So now there's a slot to slide into. So that's what I'm curious to see.
There's another slot to slide into, and that's the one left by LG.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
True.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's
I don't know.
Of my washer and dryer.
Me too. Burke, I don't know if you've got the funeral music to play, but this was the year that the LG adventure came to an end, with LG announcing that they're getting out of the smartphone business completely. And so like the wacky R&D phones and like, the Wing and all that other stuff just kissed it goodbye. And honestly, I think it's a huge loss for options in the marketplace. LG offered, really interesting different phones that brought different things to the table. I was thinking more the horns, the funeral music, but
you're thinking of taps. You're thinking of taps.
Usually give them tats, but that's just the same thing.
It's okay. It's okay. But, don't hurt yourself. It's fine.
LG was a recognizable brand to normal consumers that would walk into a carrier store and recognize a brand that they felt as if they trusted. Say what you will about the phones and say what you will if you liked them, but it was another option that's now gone. So
maybe they didn't trust them enough if they had to shut down their mobile department. I mean, it's a loss anytime smartphone manufacturer decides to stop making smartphones because it's less choice. But LG wasn't just an also ran. LG made one of the devices that's in the Hall of Fame, the Nexus 5. So solid. Samsung also in the Hall of Fame, and actually this was a big year for foldables. I feel like this was the first year with foldables. What is this, year 3 at this point, where we finally had a device, the Flip 3 primarily, where I remember seeing the Flip 3 and then getting it in my hands and kind of knowing the price, under $1,000 and everything, and going, okay, this is a foldable that has the ability or has the potential to really break through and get a lot of people buying. And I haven't seen the sales numbers on it, but I know that it's been pretty successful in that regard. So I think that's good for foldables in general to have like a device that is way more accessible for a lot more people.
I'm going to break general Android protocol and say some nice things about Samsung.
Wow.
So as a dev, I feel like many of us have like a contentious relationship with Samsung. Samsung made like Android great, right? Because Samsung in a large part drove like the market adoption of Android. So we should always be grateful for that. But Samsung likes to do their own thing, which is not very fun for us. But I will say I actually got a Fold 3. I know we were talking about Flip 3, but I actually got a Fold 3 a couple days ago.
Yeah.
I meant to bring it with me, but I was like running down here and like barely made it into my office alive. But I got the Fold 3, and I have to admit, sorry, Samsung fans, but despite the fact that it was a Samsung phone, I actually really enjoyed the Fold. I think sitting there with the kind of like folded open experience and having a large screen that was roomy, that kind of fit, like the split keyboard, it felt really good. And, in the same way that Samsung kind of drove the initial adoption of Android, I'm actually, more nice things to say about Samsung. Please take note that the way that they're pushing foldables, that they're able to use their resources, their market share to just give us a bunch of foldables, that to be able to write out the criticism and any kind of like misfires. I would actually am feeling very optimistic, especially how much I like my Fold, that they're going to push this, and that maybe it is with Samsung kind of doing the new things. And I think I saw some like interesting possible, designs for the Fold 4 that in the same way that Samsung helped Android get adoption, that maybe they're going to help foldables become a thing. And it is a really great experience. So
I think you're absolutely right, and I think that's happening. That's kind of what seems to be paving the way for everyone else. Everybody's got foldables in the works. Samsung was there early, and they did with foldables what they did with the Note and the larger kind of phablet or whatever you want to call it, smartphone displays. They were there early with that too, and people thought it was ridiculous. We probably said that it was ridiculous on this show. We're like, who would ever want a smartphone with that big of a screen? And then sure enough, like that became, a very, very standard for the industry. So I think you're absolutely right. And they're there right now. And speaking of the Note, this was also the year where the Note basically, it's not that the Note's dead. It's just that the Note, in air quotes, is dead. Next year, it's expected that the Note the S Pen functionality is going to come to the S22 Ultra. So kind of seems like, and this ties in with the no pun intended, with the foldable aspect of Samsung's business as well. Instead of having the Note be the second part of the year, big major release, they're going to fold they just keep coming. They're going to fold the S Pen into the regular S series earlier in the year. And then the second later part of the year announcement sounds like it's going to be all about foldables. And so they're going all in. They're saying this is the next category that we will dominate. So that's a big deal.
I'm excited.
Domination.
And then
domination.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of foldables, let's not touch on let's not forget about the Microsoft Duo 2, right?
Yeah, I joked about it at the top, but
yeah, I know, but still, I want to call attention to it. It takes a couple of times to get it right, and now we're on version 2 with the Duo. Maybe Microsoft is inching closer. Who knows? No.
Yeah. I mean, I think initially out of the gate, it was like, oh, wow, they made a lot of changes to the 2 that the 1 really needed. Could this be a hit? And then it seemed like reviewers were like, yeah, it still needs some work. It's there. So maybe third, like this article on Android Police says, maybe third time's a charm.
Maybe.
But maybe that's what it takes for foldables. I don't know.
Yeah, and we also, I know we don't have a story here to pull up, but I felt as if towards the end of the year we started to see a little bit of a tablet surgence happening, or at least some rumblings. Lenovo got out some great tablets at the end of the year, and we saw we had so much chatter, at least on the show, about the what's the term? The convertible, like the Chromebook, tablet.
Or the 2-in-1s or
the Duet?
The 2-in-1s, the Duet. That's the one I'm thinking of, the Duet, right? Yeah. Like low price 2-in-1s that are pretty interesting options. I still think there's an audience for tablets in Android, but I know you think there is, Flo, or yeah.
Well, Google's got like the kids mode and the entertainment mode. So you have like these different ways that you could repurpose an Android tablet if you didn't want to just use it as, a slate. And so I can see like Google still investing in it. And I think it's just going to become an extension of your Android phone. I don't think it's going to become like an iPad situation, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Or we'll just get fold and rolls. The phones that unfold and then they roll out and then you've got a full-size tablet.
By the way, can I just...
roll-ups?
Yes, right. Fold roll-ups.
Fold roll-ups, yeah.
Oh, now I want a fruit roll-up. Anyways.
I just want to bring up something very quickly because I mentioned the kids mode on Android tablets. Apparently you can't block YouTube.
Wait a minute, what?
Really?
For kids? Yeah. You can't block it. It's just you can block certain channels.
Kids? Yeah, YouTube Kids or the YouTube app?
Well, in the kids mode on the Android tablet, you can't block YouTube from launching.
Well, that's ridiculous if that's true. That's not okay.
We reverted back. Anyway, I just was thinking about this tablet situation, and Google needs something a little more formidable than
once again, long way to go.
Yeah. You don't have to push YouTube on everybody.
No, absolutely. And especially on kids' tablets, because parents really do care about, screen time and having, on a kid's tablet, you, as a parent, you want to know that your kids are doing content that you approve of. And sometimes you just
it's funny because I know for a fact through my career that YouTube and kids protections and COPPA restrictions and government regulation and all this sort of stuff has really, YouTube's made a lot of changes this past year, and specifically a lot of those manifest in the YouTube Kids app, in terms of on YouTube, if you look at what's, if you're a creator, I know this is not Android specific, but this is actually in my wheelhouse, so let me talk about it. If you're a creator, there are controls where you signify, yes, this piece of content is for kids or not for kids. And if you say that it's for kids, it automatically turns off the comments. It turns off the recommendations on the video at the end of it. Like there's all these kind of new restrictions or new kind of guardrails that are in place for kids content. So that's why, Flo, I asked if the difference between the YouTube app or the YouTube Kids app, because if the YouTube Kids app, I mean, I think that's fine because they've done all this work. If it's YouTube in general, that's a little effed up. But
I know. But do you really want your kid watching videos of other kids playing with monster trucks in mud?
Well, no.
Well,
but I also don't want,
anyone can
my kids
make
watching
that
as
decision
much
for themselves.
Yeah, and I don't want my kids watching as much Coco Melon as they do, but they do. Like it's
Coco Melon, a pox on my life. That and Paw Patrol.
Those are kid trends that I narrowly escaped, but I had to deal with Dora, so there's
you dealt with other stuff, so
yes, exactly. It's always something.
And
let me tell you,
you have preteens going on now, so
it's true.
Other problems.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. All right, we've reached the end of our time with hardware, but I do want to mention Ron finally got his Android Auto wireless thing.
I did,
and has loved it. It sounds like. And I also want to mention the Pixel Buds A, which I thought was a big step up, even though they were like half the cost of the Pixel Buds. Big step up from the Pixel Buds, even is so a great value, value device for that reason. Yeah. And once again, we probably missed some stuff, but that's what we got. So, Ron, I think you've got this ad.
Yes. So this second break in the episode is brought to you by our good friends at userway.org. And Userway is amazing and has a vision that, as a content creator and as a internet business person, I really connect with. Every website, without exception, needs to be accessible because it's a public entity and, frankly, because it's the right thing to do. It's a federal ADA law that mandates equal access to services for all Americans, and you could be liable if your website does not meet ADA laws for accessibility. I've been through accessibility reviews of websites. It's so important. You want to make sure everybody can access your content. And Userway has an incredible AI-powered solution that tirelessly enforces the hundreds of WCAG guidelines. With just one line of JavaScript, Userway can achieve more than an entire team of developers. Userway's AI and machine learning solutions power accessibility for over 1 million websites trusted by Coca-Cola, Disney, eBay, FedEx, and many other leading brands. And now Userway is making its best-in-class enterprise-level accessibility tools available to small and medium businesses. When you scale, you need Userway. An accessible and compliant website isn't the only right thing to do. It also makes business sense. The Achilles heel for websites are registration forms, nav menus, and shopping carts that are just not accessible. Millions of people require Userway just to purchase your products. And for years, Userway has been on the cutting edge, creating innovative accessibility technologies that push the envelope of what's possible with AI, machine learning, and computer vision. Userway's AI automatically fixes violations at the code level. And here's some of the other great things Userway does. They enable auto generation of image alts. It writes image descriptions for you, which is so important for people who are visually impaired. Those image descriptions help them understand what they could be, quote unquote, seeing on your website. Remediates complex nav menus and ensures that all pop-ups are accessible. Imagine if you can't see a website and trying to navigate it via audio or via other ways to go. Navigation is one of the hardest things to get right with accessibility, and Userway is helping so many people get it correct, which is awesome. It fixes vague link violations and fixes any broken links, ensures your websites makes use of accessible colors while remaining true to your brand, and gives you a detailed report of all the violations that were fixed on your website. And best of all, Userway is platform agnostic. Whether you're using WordPress, Shopify, or Wix, Userway is cost-effective and easy to add. And the same goes for AEM, Sitecore, or SharePoint. Userway integrates seamlessly with all. Let Userway help your business meet its compliance goals and improve the experience for your users. Check out their free scanning tool to see if your website is ADA compliant. And who better to hear than the voice of Siri, who's considered the world's most popular voice assistant, and she has a message about Userway.
Userway is trusted by more than 1 million websites and 60 million users with disabilities. Visit userway.org to learn how one line of code can make your website accessible.
UserWay can make any website fully accessible and ADA compliant. With UserWay, everyone who visits your site can browse seamlessly and customize it to fit their needs. It's also a perfect way to showcase your brand's commitment to millions of people with disabilities. So go to userway.org/twit and get 30% off UserWay's AI-powered accessibility solution. UserWay, making the internet accessible for everyone. Visit userway.org/twit today. And thanks, UserWay, for making the internet accessible and being a sponsor of the show and just being awesome. Thanks, UserWay. Happy holidays.
Thank you, UserWay. I love what they're doing. All right. Up next, we've got some of the top app news or app-related news of the year. Oh, where do we even begin? I'm looking at the order here. I'm like, you know what? We'll go ahead and boost that to the top. That seems like a good first go-to here. RCS.
Oh, RCS.
Rich Communication Services.
Oh, RCS. Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Well, I'm going to get you started because that's what we're talking about. That's why we're here.
Oh, man.
Are you not liking RCS? I mean, last year
I love
was
RCS. I'm pro RCS. Don't get me wrong. Like I was messaging with somebody who I could see their typing. It was the dream of RCS coming to be a reality. It's just, and it's great that Google has, kind of led the way here, and that the carriers have finally got over themselves and got caught up to speed. But who's always last to the party? Apple. Yeah. They're the problem, as always. So
Apple, not jumping on the bandwagon.
They don't care. And we found out all about that through the Epic ruling, which is that Apple does not care, and they are fine with their exclusivity, and it's perfectly working for them. They did give us FaceTime, though, through an invite.
True, sort of.
But who wants it?
And by the way, nobody uses it because it's too complicated.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't. This is unpopular, not on topic, but let's do a quick poll. I don't like video chatting on my phone. I don't like video calls. Am I an old man yelling at the sky? Am I the only one?
No, I hate it. I could talk to my best friend for 3 hours on the phone, no problem, but I don't even want 5 minutes on video because it's so invasive.
There's something so innately awkward about holding your phone and talking to someone and having to do it. And I see people around where they're on video, but they're not even looking at it, or and it's just I don't know. I just don't feel like it's a good experience. Are Flo and I the only ones? What do you both think?
We're old. It's young people. I was at Target, and the Target employee, she was on her break. She was hanging out with somebody on FaceTime.
Yeah. What do you think, Gwen? I'm curious to know what you thought.
No, I'm old. It makes me barf. Sorry. It's just unless you start handing out steady cams and stabilizers to everyone. No.
Honestly, I don't mind it. I'm fine to do video call, but I'm not doing it all the time. It's not like my every time replacement for the phone. It's just, but if I'm calling my parents, I would much rather look at my mom and say, hey, than, talk to her on the phone. Although I talk to her on the phone too. It's really situation dependent. If I've got the time and I've got a place to sit back and relax, I'm not going to be the one that's on a video call or walking around like this and waving it around. I'm too dialed into video quality. It's like my hand, my elbow is planted on the table and I'm making sure that I'm framed properly, but whatever. I don't mind it. I like the extra context. Man,
it's nice. It's nice every now and then. It's nice every now and then. It's like the kids like to see, they want to see my sister or their grandmother or another baby, something like that. But I can't have someone's like, oh, do you want to do a WhatsApp video call? I'm like, no, just call me. Just call. That's fine.
Let's just.
Anyway, I know this is not what we were talking about, but RCS.
Yeah. Well, and I think, and why is this in app news? Because this was also the year that, at least here in the US, the carriers, they got rid of their own combined, they had their own combined kind of collaboration on RCS that they were going to make happen. And then they all seemed to kind of pitch that to the side and get serious about Google's RCS. And ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, that meant that they all kind of dedicated themselves to having Android messages on all of their devices by default, which has improved, I would say, largely the adoption of and usage of RCS. And it's kind of nice, because actually I feel like Android messages is a pretty solid app coming from Google. So Yeah, it's just too bad that Apple doesn't care. But whatever, they're the ones missing out, not us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So annoying.
Yeah.
Also talking about chat, Hangouts, which I feel like is old news, but Hangouts went away officially, like for good, and replaced with Google Chat, which at first I think I was a little like, why you got to do that? But I'm totally fine with Google Chat. I don't know about anybody else. I use it all the time.
I never use it. Never use it.
I only use it with my husband. That's it. That's our official private chat channel.
Yeah, no, I say I use it all the time. That's because I use it all the time with my wife. So that's, my wife and my daughters have it on their computers downstairs. What about you, Wen? Have you used Google Chat? Did you care very much about Hangouts and the transition there?
We cared like my close friend group, which is all tech people. We cared a lot because actually Google. Wait, let me make sure I'm getting the right one. Google Hangouts was kind of our thing for a long time. So when it was announced it was going away, we all evacuated to Signal and dragged most of our parents there. So unfortunately, it's kind of like, okay, we've moved on. The entropy to switch again is low. But I think my mother-in-law is the one person that messages both my husband and myself with Google Chat. And it's fine. It's fine. But like one person, just one person.
Right.
It's really funny because I was thinking about chat the other day in the shower. Because, as you do. And I was thinking about all the different chat platforms that we've used and that I've used since the 90s. And I just wonder, because, obviously we're all on AIM, Instant Messenger. And then those of us that were on the Hotmail chat or whatever it was, and then, then we got Trillium and or whatever, app that you got that unified all those chat platforms so you talk with other people. Then Gtalk came into the mix and all these, kind of things. And I think about all the chat platforms we've left behind Hangouts. And I was just like, I was kind of fancifully thinking like, I wonder if I logged into that old app, if these like dead chats that were sent to me 10 years ago that I never responded to, you know what I mean? Like, is there someone on Gtalk trying to get in touch with me? Right?
Yeah. Or some sort of documentation of it, even if it's not available anymore, it's still logged.
Well, I used to keep the transcripts of all my chat logs and all this sort of stuff. I used to have that meticulously, in the same way that like I obsessively keep all my SMSs and my WhatsApp chats.
Yes.
Because I'm going to reference a chat from 2015.
I was going to say, how often do you go back in time to those old messages and check?
I did actually just recently. Something came up. Me and my wife were trying to figure out when something happened. I said, "Oh, let me look back in our chat," and I found vaguely the month in 2016 that it happened. Right? But
okay.
But not that often. But it's funny because I just do think that with Google Hangouts moving to Google Chat or whatever, it's just continuing this parade of platforms. And I think about the chats that have stuck, at least for me in most recent years. And it's like, and again, when similar to you with moving your family over, I moved everybody over to WhatsApp, and that's where we all are. And I literally now have, 6 years of chat history on WhatsApp. And then Flo, I know you're all, Discord queen, and it's so great, but Slack has been ever present in my life, both professionally but also personally, and that I've got some social Slacks that I've been, since the early 20aughts or whatever, where there's I'm in a Bay Area pinball Slack that was started very, very early on, and it's like every time I open up my phone, when I set up my Pixel 6, I set up Slack and let me add work, let me add pinball, let me add this this group, because that's where my friends are, and so it's fascinating when you think about it. So. Yeah.
The messaging mess continues.
The messaging mess, indeed.
Yeah, this was also the year, and we talked about this on the show many times throughout the year, the transition from Android Auto to assistant driving mode. So the Android Auto phone app experience. This is actually a pretty recent thing too, because I feel like we've been fielding emails in the last couple of months about this quite frequently. But a lot of people not so happy about the transition, even though Google signaled this quite a while ago, at Google I/O. And then they finally did it. And it's like, it was just another one of those examples of why are you replacing something that actually works, it does all these things, something that's full featured, with something that's like half the feature? Why is it a replacement? Why does it have to be like this, Google? A lot of people not very happy about it.
One of those people was me. For as much as I'm supposed to pay attention to Google News and I do watch Google I/O things, I did not realize this, and I found this out in the middle of a drive where I was trying to get Android Auto to appear on my phone screen.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't do that. And I have to admit, like, I was really upset, mostly because, you know, I love Android Auto. I've had it in my last couple of Subarus and I find it like invaluable. We have like numerous other cars that have their own kind of like whatever manufacturer proprietary, you know, driving experiences. And I've always found that Android Auto is actually one of the most consistent, well-featured ones. But the problem with like connectivity and Ron, I'm going to steal your wireless like Android Auto thing because that's exactly what we need. But I think, sorry, we kind of lost the thread on that because I'm like thinking about how I almost like did it bad when I found out that they killed the phone screen. But anyway, like connectivity is a problem. Like the just with all the different auto manufacturers and the wire connection that some of us are still using for their Android Auto, this seems like a miss. And I don't mean that because I got scared half to death trying to like not look at my phone while trying to get to where I was going. But yeah, I totally agree, especially with kind of like the gap for the wired connection and like with the wire, like it just feels like I don't know. I don't like less. Yeah. I don't like less help when I'm driving. Maybe that's just because I'm a bad driver. But
I don't have a system in my car because my car is from 2008. Like I do have Bluetooth, but I had a proprietary iPod connector in there. I yanked it out, revealed the aux, and that's how I get music in my car. Yeah. So the Android Auto for the phone screen was absolutely perfect. I had paired it with the Rove Bolt. I thought I had absolutely something perfect going. You know, we also got a Subaru this year. It has Android Auto built into the dash, and that has also been, it's so buggy. Oh God. I'm going to admit this out loud. I had a fight with my husband had to leave the car because I was so pissed off that nothing was working. It was already a bad day. So it was just like the last, but it's the last thing that you need sometimes. I'm so stressed out.
Yeah.
Pandemic
I just need
and everything
you to work
else.
Technology.
I mean, I'm being serious here. I don't have time for a beta situation, but in all seriousness, I'm really bummed about Android Auto for the phone screen. That's like the biggest.
Yeah, it's a big loss.
It is. I'm still using it, by the way. They haven't like completely deprecated it yet. I'm not using that Maps Spotify integration. It doesn't even like go into dark mode when I want it to. So I have like this white light flashing at me.
No good. I'm surprised that you're still using it for phone screens. I didn't realize that you could still be using it. I thought it was all.
Well, I need Maps.
Shut off.
I need Maps and I need Maps and voice commands.
Are you saying that you're still using Android Auto for phone screens, or you're still using the assistant driving mode because that's all that you have?
Yep. Here we go.
Okay. All right. I misunderstood. Okay. Yeah, exactly. We're using it because it's the option that we have. Yeah. It
still
does
works.
The trick. Oh, okay. Okay. Other than that, you know, outside of Google's own apps, this was the year where we finally got Clubhouse for Android and then immediately forgot that it existed. Maybe I'm just speaking about myself, but
who cares?
Everybody seems so stoked about Clubhouse at one point, like a year ago.
It was just fun. It was just funny because I was talking recently about Twitter Spaces. I was at work and somehow it came up and like all this stuff. And someone's like, well, what is Twitter Spaces? And I was like, remember Clubhouse like a year ago? I was like, oh yeah, that was the thing everyone was crazy about. Yeah, well, Twitter scrambled and replicated it. And like, oh, do people use that? I'm like, well, yeah, well, some people use it just like some people use Clubhouse now. Like I know that there are like I have friends who have like met like random people on Clubhouse and then became IRL flow friends. I was channeling your use of abbreviations.
Yes.
But you know, like had meetups and things like that from, you know, groups of people that met on Clubhouse, which is great, which is the same thing that's been happening since chat rooms in the early 90s, right? So like it's another way for people to connect. But like the amount of hype that was around Clubhouse when it was invite only on iOS and then to the wide rollout of Android is just like whatever. Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Whatever. LastPass, of course, announced that they were changing their free tier. Also along those lines, Google Photos free storage went away. This is like one of those years where, where things that were once free suddenly kind of shifted around and people weren't so happy about it. It's like they got used to their free and now they're not getting the free and they don't like that.
No such thing as a free lunch, as they said in the 90s repeatedly to us.
And it's true. All lunch costs money. And Pokemon, speaking of money, Pokemon, a continuing freight train, $5 billion in 5 years, $1 billion in 2020 alone, which I realized was last year.
It's because they give you no space. You have no item space. So every time you log on to the damn thing, they want $2.
Okay. Yeah, that's lost on me. I don't really play Pokemon. haven't really played Pokemon.
It's the item bag. You can't keep collecting things, and they're like, "But you need more space.
So you
why
need
not?
more space.
Why not buy more tokens?"
Gotcha. I see.
Okay, here's $2.
Were you are you a player, or were you a player of Pokemon Go? Did you get swept up in that at all?
We were. My husband and I were huge on Ingress back in the day. And so that transitions in Pokemon Go. But there's actually a stop right in front of our old house, like literally in front of our house. So we kind of got into a turf war with our neighbor. Like at first it was a really cute way to meet our neighbor. But then we kept like, it was like the two of us versus our one neighbor back and forth. It's like, this is too stressful. I don't want a bad relationship with my neighbor. He can have the stop. And then after we kind of like had to give that up, I was like, I'm done. I can't do this. I've been beaten down by this turf war. So I still have friends that play, and there's something that's very, like, as a former gamer still, I find it fascinating this has taken off so much, and I still love the idea of it. I love like the mix of the AR and the real life, and then like you know, obviously Pokemon is a huge IP in general. No, but this is cool. But I'm not going to do it. I can't. Sometimes you just got to say no and then just try to keep your neighbors.
You just gotta back away. Yeah,
back away.
Right.
Yep. Play it safe. You got to play it straight.
Play it safe. And finally in here, I certainly don't have a whole lot to say about it, but apparently in Windows 11, you're going to be able to play Android apps. And this comes in a couple of different directions. Microsoft was working with the Amazon App Store to bring certain, Amazon's Android apps into Windows 11. But then we very recently heard that Google is developing its own Play Store for Windows, if I'm not mistaken, or at least Google Play Games they're making for Windows themselves. And so apparently now there's a big push to do what we've been able to do on Chrome OS for quite a while now. Now they want to do that in Windows 11. So if you have Windows 11, which I do not, you'll be able to play your Android games and run your Android apps there too, which is, I mean, it's great for developers. Actually, that's a good question for you, Wen. How much of a boon is something like this, in your opinion?
I think it's important. So, where I work, so in general, when you have any kind of app, the question is, how do we get our app on all the things? It's no longer a question of, do we have an Android and an iOS app? It's like, how do we do it? So there's always this question of, how do we cross platform? How do we most efficiently get our presence on as many platforms as possible? Do we just do a separate app for all the things, which is actually what my company Trello has right now? We have a separate desktop app along with an iOS app and an Android app and a web presence, but that's a lot. That's a lot of resources. That's a lot of dev. That's a lot of like managing. That's a lot of like trying to keep all these experiences consistent. So I think that this is awesome. I think that this is just another opportunity for especially smaller and independent devs to kind of get more places. So, the dream of, I guess, any like app developer is write once, run everywhere, or build fewer times and run everywhere. So I think this would be a boon. I think that especially with like testing, it's always good to have more places to see how your stuff runs. So I think this will be a benefit. I'm not sure how much is going to take off. So then the question becomes, do the apps on Windows 11 actually take off? Because I think a lot of times when something like this happens, there's a little bit of a disconnect from, okay, this thing is available. that doesn't always lead to users on that platform saying, oh, hey, I can get X app now on Windows, on Chrome OS. So it'll be interesting to see whether Windows users actually kind of take this opportunity and, and then it opens up market share for a dev on like a Windows machine. But I think what's the worst going to happen? It's just going to fade into the background like many things. But I think always more opportunity and more ways of being able to use the same resources and effort in multiple places is what we like to see.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the expectation isn't. I'm imagining isn't Android apps on Windows 11. Suddenly, we're going to sell tons more games, or we're going to make or whatever. It's more. Hey, here's yet another place that our app or our game can be used, and the ability for that to be used in all of these places is better than for some of these places. So might as well. It's almost like don't have the expectation that it's going to mean like a large number of new sales necessarily. Maybe it will, but just being represented in all these platforms is better than not.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Cool. All right. Well, coming up after this break, we're going to talk about some of the developer news from this year. And Wynn, I'm so happy you're here for this part, especially for the whole show, but especially this part. So hold tight. This episode of All About Android is brought to you by BetterHelp. It's BetterHelp Online Therapy. You can actually check them out at betterhelp.com/Android. The best way to think about therapy is, you could use a bunch of analogies. We get our cars tuned up, and that's because we want to prevent bigger issues down the road, right? Take care of it now before it becomes a bigger issue. We get annual checkups. We go to the gym. That's to, make sure that physically we're well going forward and as we get older, and, to prevent injuries and disease, that sort of stuff. We do chores regularly, at least some of us do. And that's because we don't want that mess to build up in the house and maybe, roaches appear in the corners or whatever. So we're doing the work up front to make sure that later down the road, things are as good as they could possibly be. Going to therapy is really a lot like all of these. It's routine maintenance for your mental and emotional wellness, and it's going to help prevent bigger issues down the road. It really does. Therapy doesn't mean something's wrong with you, of course. It means you're investing in yourself to keep your mind healthy. It gives you an avenue to explore certain things that maybe you don't feel comfortable exploring, or you're afraid to explore. This is an avenue to do it in a trusting environment, and ultimately it's better to do that than it is to lock it away. BetterHelp isn't just any online therapy. It's customized for you by offering video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist. So you don't actually have to see anyone on camera if you don't truly want to. You totally have that option. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. It's super quick. When I signed up for it, I was chatting with my therapist in a matter of just a couple of hours, and it was like, oh, well, there you are. All right, let's set this up. Let's do it. And it was pretty awesome. Why invest in everything else and not your mind, not your well-being? Well, this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, of course, and All About Android listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/Android. And I'll spell that out. It's BetterHelp, betterhelp.com/Android. Check it out for yourself. You're going to be really happy that you did. And we thank BetterHelp for their support of All About Android. All right, so we'll round things out with some of the big developer-focused news from the year. There's always, new bits of news, new versions of some of the developer tools that developers are using. And usually when we talk about it on the show, we preface it with, and we're not developers, so we think this is important because, or we read this is important because. But it turns out we have a developer with us. So Wen, it's awesome to get your perspective on some of this stuff. And actually, I'm looking through this block here. You really threw some pretty solid stuff in here. You did the majority of the populating on this. So tell us what you think. What if you had to place something at the top of the list from a developer perspective, what would that be?
Oh, easy peasy. So as I kind of mentioned at the beginning, last few years, it felt solid, but kind of just incremental improvements in Android. And I don't think we've really had any kind of big news since 2017 when Android adopted a new modern programming language as a first class kind of like way to build Android, and that was Kotlin. And I think this year with the release of a new Android toolkit called Jetpack Compose, we have kind of like the big bomb, I guess, in terms of like Android developer news. And this is probably by far the most important and also probably well-known new thing that we get. And so what Jetpack Compose is basically a new way, a new toolkit for building Android UIs. So the interesting thing about this is that Android is however many years old now, and we have the same system. Before Jetpack Compose, we had the same system called the View system for building apps. So think about this. We have like an over decade old technology for building UIs. And in that time, Android has grown. We've, materials come into life, like phones keep getting better, devices keep getting better. So as Android develops and adds more features, we're still using the same like kind of old View system to implement a lot of these things. Motion design becomes a thing. We've got kind of all these advances, and the Android team has had to work really hard to make kind of a modern experience work with this, again, 10-year-old system. So what Jetpack Compose is basically just basically just wiping the whole slate clean and using modern language, Kotlin. It's all written in Kotlin, which is like the language that devs absolutely love. And that I think is I can confidently say is kind of like the primary language now. It's like the recommended language. It uses kind of modern.
So fast. From my perspective, that happened so fast. It was like, I feel like it was just yesterday that we were at that Google I.O. and everybody was flipping their lid over the announcement of Kotlin. And then boom, now it's just the primary. That's just the way it is.
It is. And I think that's one of the benefits of being an Android dev. When you really like something and you tell Google that they like it, they'll try very hard to make it a thing. They do. Yeah. They do listen. I think that is one thing that I love about being an Android dev is that I do feel like they're listening. You don't always get what you want, but occasionally, as the Rolling Stones say, you get what you need. And we definitely need Kotlin. So I guess without going into too much technical detail, this is basically very modern. And something that's very interesting about Android development is that because we've kind of carried some of these old systems through 10 years. And as we try to develop like new patterns, like new things, new features, a lot of that stuff kind of gets tacked on. Like think about like a road and it gets potholes, or you kind of like have like new types of traffic lights or new like technologies. You kind of like put it on the same road and you keep putting stuff on the same road and the road keeps getting like potholes and you keep filling them up. This is basically just like scraping all the concrete off and laying a fresh new road down. It's just like that. Now, why do people who aren't devs care? So a lot of reasons. Basically, there are a lot of things that are hard to do with Android development. Animation's hard. Like beautiful transitions are hard. Making sure that things like scroll beautifully when you have a lot of stuff on the screen, load well. And what Jetpack Compose lets you do is kind of do all this beautiful stuff easily and quickly. So basically, instead of having this kind of like old road that has all this stuff kind of attached to it, you have a bunch of modern features, modern UI kind of consistently and kind of coherently put together. And there actually was a lot of challenges during the summer where Google challenged devs, hey, do something cool with Jetpack and do it within like 30 days or a week. So it's huge. I love it. And like, you can just, I've drank in the Compose Kool-Aid. It's probably, Compose Kool-Aid. It's very exciting. I'm a big like UI person. I love animations, and the ease with which you can do cool things with Compose is amazing. And it kind of fixes a lot of the problems that we've had. So I think what this is going to mean is that whether you're a beginning dev or you're an established team, you'll be able to do a lot of stuff, cool stuff, faster and better. And that's basically it. It's like, it's really exciting. And yeah, like Jetpack Compose, easily the number one thing. It's an entire rewrite of the toolkit. And hopefully, as things go, we'll be able to, people will be able to do cool things faster. And that's kind of just another thing. Like a lot of times, Android announces Android like 24 has this new thing, and you wonder why your favorite app hasn't like gotten the new thing, or like, hey, there's a new version of material and it takes your favorite app like 4 years to get there. It's because like there's always been kind of a dissonance between cool new thing and getting, kind of like the old View system and things that kind of go with it kind of to catch up and to be able to easily do the new things. So now we have a whole bunch of just new toys. So that is like the number one kind of biggest thing this year, and the thing that will probably change the way you work as an Android dev the most. And again, like hopefully you're going to start seeing a lot more cool, delightful, motion-driven, and hopefully more stable. Well, that's the hope, but kind of more modernly built apps. So that's the huge thing. I'm excited. I could talk about it for hours, and I'm sorry, but it's great. If you're a dev, ask them what they think of Jetpack Compose. Hopefully they'll be excited about it, like I am.
Don't apologize. Don't be sorry. That I love that. I love that you're so excited about toolkits like this. This is the kind of stuff that, like, you know, from the outside looking in, like I can understand why it's useful and why it's important, but really picking up on the energy that developers like you feel about these tools shows me. I mean, it shows me that Google is at least doing something right. These sorts of tools and announcements around these really play to Google's advantage, right? Because at its core, Google is a company that is built with developers in mind, by developers, for developers largely, to the point to where a lot of the things that they're trying to position as for consumers and everything, it's like they're just a little too something else than they are like a true consumer play. And that's just because like their minds are in a different place. Their minds are in places like this, and that's why they do them so well. So that's great. What is Compose multi-platform? Because that seems to tie into that.
Yeah. So I kind of mentioned Kotlin before. So if you aren't aware, Kotlin is it's a relatively new programming language that you can write Android in. So traditionally you would write Android in Java. Java is much, much older. Kotlin is a kind of a relatively new language created by the company JetBrains. JetBrains is also the company that has made all of the tools that us Android devs use. So if you're familiar with Android Studio, which is the main IDE or integrated development environment for Android, they make that too. So Kotlin is just really fun language. Like if you are looking to get into development and do Android work, I would highly recommend you use both Kotlin and Jetpack Compose. But anyway, I mentioned before that kind of a long standing like hope for devs is to write once and run everywhere. It's like the multi-platform, cross-platform problem. I know I personally have been through many iterations of, hey, like we got this new like toolkit or this new platform and you can write once and run everywhere. And generally they haven't worked for various reasons, just because, you know, sometimes you get an app and you can kind of tell that at least maybe as a dev, my husband and I are devs, so we tend to just like open up new apps and kind of play the guessing game of, was this written in Android or was this written in some cross-platform? You can kind of tell sometimes with apps that don't feel like they're either making use of Android or they kind of feel a little bit not like your typical Android experience. So I think a lot of companies have unfortunately gone the route of, okay, we're going to have a whole Android team, we're going to have a whole iOS team. And, you know, we're always trying to solve this problem. Is like, how can we bridge gaps? How can we not have to write everything twice? So we've got things like Flutter and now something like Kotlin multi-platform. So Kotlin multi-platform is basically taking Kotlin, which was originally written as a way to make Java development better, like was aiming for the Java virtual machine, and kind of being able to take Kotlin and write stuff for all kinds of platforms. So you can write Kotlin for the web. You can write Kotlin for iOS. You can write Kotlin for desktop. And what's really interesting is that it's actually gained traction. Usually, you know, you have like apps written in Xamarin or Cordova or other platforms that do well, but they're not, I think it's fair to say they're not that mainstream. I think the vast majority of apps are still written kind of natively, which is just, again, an individual Android team, an individual iOS team. So what's really interesting about Kotlin multi-platform is that it's yet another, hey, you can write once and run in multiple places, but it's actually kind of taking off. And what is interesting about this is that kind of building on their success of making a platform that works for code sharing, where we kind of maybe take parts of an application that are the same, regardless of whether you're on iOS or Android, and being able to write it once and then running that same code in multiple places, so you don't have to write it twice. They're now combining that with Compose, which is the Android UI toolkit that I talked about before. And so we're kind of getting to a point where maybe cross-platform development is actually going to get actually super mainstream, and you could write you can actually maybe get closer to write once, run everywhere. And it's really exciting. What's most exciting about this is that Kotlin, like as you said, Jason, has taken off very fast. It's kind of like a huge success story in terms of like a new thing that got adopted really quickly. We were all a little bit skeptical about multi-platform, but that's kind of been taking off. Not quite the same way, but it's still kicking. And to have this kind of new, delightful toolkit that we can do really interesting things, kind of be applied now to this this kind of multi-platform thing is pretty exciting. I don't know if it's, I don't know the future. I don't know if it's actually going to result in all of us writing for everything with Kotlin and Compose, but it's really interesting. And I think it's worth, if you're a dev, taking a look at. Because again, like everyone always wants to do less work. Everyone wants to kind of not do things 2 to 3 times. So it looks like there are more options now. So yeah.
Awesome. And then let's wrap this up with this one final thing here, because I know we're running a little long, is the App Store fees for developers changed this year, which I imagine is pretty good news from my understanding. I mean, it kind of lowered the barrier for developers. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's always like a problem too, especially for independent and small developers. I mean, that's just the thing. I remember like starting out first as a mobile dev and I actually started out with, I started Android and then I went to iOS for a while, because this was back when there was more iOS jobs than Android jobs, and having to pay like that developer registration was not fun because it was $99 whole. And being first out of college, that kind of sucked. So I think that, anything that can promote independent and small developers is awesome. And I think it's always a contentious thing about when you are like how much is the platform taking is always pretty contentious. So I like this a lot. I think that especially with maybe hopefully the ease with which people can get into development now with these new tools and kind of like the efforts that Google is making with education, that people are going to be able to get more out of their efforts with this. I just like seeing it. I think it's awesome. I'm always happy to see developer friendly things. So yeah, go for it. If you have that great app idea.
Indeed. Right on. All right. We have to cut it there because I just realized it's 7:00. This has been a little bit of a longer episode. And quite honestly, this episode always runs a little bit long because as Ron there's so much that happened this year. It's hard to sum up an entire year in one episode. But man, we do our best.
This was a year for the books in Android, that's for sure. So.
Pretty sure we say that every year too. But this year it's really true.
I can definitively say this is way better than 2017. 2017 was just a boring year. So I have no idea.
So boring, I can't even remember it. Yeah, exactly.
I'm Googling 2017 in Android. So let's see what it says.
That was when Kotlin was announced. So Android dev actually loved 2017.
Okay,
so
well,
sorry.
So there you go. Wynn, it's always a pleasure getting you on the show. Thank you so much for hopping on with us today and being here for this very special episode and sharing all of your knowledge on all this stuff. We really appreciate you. Tell people if there's something you want to point people to, or let people know kind of what you're up to and where. This is a great time to do so. What you up to?
Yeah. If you didn't get scared off by me ranting about Android things, Android development things, I often do talks on the internet, but I am at randomlytyping.com. I said this last time I was around, but it's a little empty right now, but I'm working on some stuff in terms of like Android development. So keep an eye out. And you can also follow me on most social media things at Queen Code Monkey. But yeah. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun, and I apologize. I'm so excited about these things, and I talk so long.
You don't need to apologize at all. Love it. Yeah. Love having you on. Thank you again, Wynn. And Flo, what do you want to plug?
Before I plug anything, I just want to let you all know we're going to have a slight schedule change. A roster change to All About Android starting in January, and by which I mean that I will be returning monthly beginning in 2022. So I just want to let everybody know.
That's right.
I'll be here. Not
You'll be
every
here.
single episode.
You'll be here.
But I'll be here
when you can. That's
exactly.
We support it. It's great. We want a little bit of flow versus no flow. So this all works.
I do have 3 other jobs. So
Flo, you are incredibly busy. We are honored and happy to have you on the show even once a month. Whatever we can get. You're awesome.
I love you guys. I can't be without you. That's the truth. And I love what I do, which makes it hard because then I do too much of it. And
I understand.
I have a child now.
Yeah.
Apparently they need
The laws
time with their
change.
parents.
Yeah, they do. It's actually pretty important.
My son told me, put the phone away, Dad, the other day. And
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah, that one's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, what do you want
okay.
to point people to, Flo?
Listen, there's plenty of other places to also find me on the weeks that I am not here at All About Android. So I will be back in January, but until then, you can find me at florenceion.com. If you'd like to come join my Discord, I have my own little Discord community called the Flow Feed. It's really great. Please come join us. Flowrights.tech. That is my Gizmodo RSS, so you can see everything that I write at gizmodo.com. And please don't forget that we just recently launched Gadgets, a new podcast from Gizmodo. It's me and my co-host Caitlin McGarry, also a friend of the show here at All About Android. We publish weekly. We'll be publishing toward the end of the year. And you can check us out. We're on Pocket Cast. We're on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. So please check us out.
Do indeed. Thank you, Flo.
Thank you, guys.
Good to see you here and Happy New Year. And what about you, Ron?
Yes. So if you are looking for another extra long podcast to listen to wrap up the year, please head over to ifanboy.com where you can listen to me and Josh and Connor over there, where we did our year-end wrap-up podcast where we talk about all the movies, TV, books, music, comics, all the great stuff from 2021. Talked about my favorite movie of the year, which was Licorice Pizza, and my favorite TV show of the year, Only Murders in the Building. So great conversation, a lot of good stuff there. It's like a 2-hour plus podcast, so go listen to that. And as always, you can follow me over on Twitter and on Instagram at RonXO. And if you're into pinball, go check out Scorebit.io, or you can download the Scorebit app from the Google Play Store. And everybody have a great, happy, healthy holidays, and can't wait to be back here in January with Jason and Flo monthly and all other great folks. So,
yes, indeed. Thank you, Ron. Happy New Year. Big thank you to Burke at the studio. Big thank you to Victor at his home, both of whom we could not do this show without, for you are the backbone that drives this show behind the scenes. So thank you for everything that you've done this year. As for me, at Jason Howell on Twitter, that might be the easiest place for me to point you to. I did want to mention that Ron and I actually are doing something pretty awesome on New Year's Eve. We're doing something for extralife.org. It's a fundraiser. It's a live stream fundraiser on New Year's Eve for Children's Miracle Network Hospital. And so Ron and I are going to be on the live stream. Basically, the idea of this live stream is I think it's a 24-hour live stream with different folks, different people, podcasters, and all sorts of other people, each occupying an hour. And we're going to be there live, just kind of hanging out for an hour, taking questions, talking with people. The whole idea here is that no one is alone on New Year's Eve. So we're going to hang out with you. And so many other people are going to hang out with you too. But at 10:30 a.m. Pacific for 1 hour on New Year's Eve, Ron and I are going to be chatting with y'all, answering questions. It could be Android related. It could be anything related, really. I think I'll just read it. It's twitch.tv/DC Streamathon. And I would say probably the easiest thing to do, since this is a little ways down the line, just go to my Twitter ID on that day at Jason Howell, and I'll have it pinned. I'm going to pin the information so it'll be really easy to find. But we'll be there at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, and would love to see some of you or all of you hanging out on New Year's. It'd be a lot of fun, and it's for a really great cause.
And it's in support of you can go to extra-life.org. Extra-life.org is the organization, and so excited to be doing that. It's love that end of the year stuff with all of our our podcast and friends are all rallying to do this. And so the least we can do to spend an hour on New Year's Eve with some of our closest friends in the internet. So please join us. It should be fun. So.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. And I will just say real quick, Club Twit twit.tv/clubtwit. Go there, $7 a month, ad-free content. It's really great. Discord, Twit Plus podcast feed. It's the fastest Club Twit promo that I've ever done. But there you go, twit.tv/clubtwit. Thank you so much for watching and listening. We've reached the end of this episode. We publish every Tuesday, so go to twit.tv/AAA and you'll find this podcast, and you won't even have to think about it. It'll appear for you like magic once you subscribe to it. That's what we hope you do, really. And that's it. Happy New Year. Happy holidays. It's all coming up. Have a wonderful break, and stay tuned next week for our Best of 2021 Clips show. Take care, everybody. Bye, y'all.
Bye, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Happy New Year.
Happy holidays.
So you got yourself the brand new latest and greatest iPhone or Samsung smartphone because you heard about all of the beautiful photography those things can create, but for some reason, you're just not quite getting it done when you try to make your photos. Or you got yourself a brand new camera because you were interested in getting started in photography, but your little new inexpensive camera still isn't quite cutting it. Well, you need to check out my show, Hands on Photography, here on Twit. I'm going to show you how to be a better photographer and a better post-processor, and quite frankly, just help you get the most out of that new camera that's either on your phone or the brand new one that you just got for your birthday or gifts or what have you. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So head on over to twit.tv/hop. That's twit.tv/HOP and subscribe today.